Hello everybody and welcome to my first After Effects tutorial here. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do some transitions, and the one I'm going to show you in this video is a nice spin transition. Go check out my Instagram, it's right on the screen right now. And this isn't After Effects. I'll probably make other videos with, obviously After Effects you have to pay for, so if you can't do that, there's other things like HitFilm Express, which is free, and I might have other videos on that. First off, import your pictures. So I have two here of dogs, doges, if that's a plural. So just basically just drag them into here. So first picture, second picture, like you're gonna trim how long you want them to be. So let's say the first one, which is on top, this right here, and you realize that the quality of this isn't the best. Make sure that down here it's set to full. I have that on half, and usually if I have really complex edits, I put it on almost like a quarter, because if there's trouble rendering the video, like I don't really care about how it looks when I'm playing it back. I just want to see how my effects are in transitions, so I just put it on quarter, half sometimes. But in this case we can do full because it's not that complex. So first we want to cut the video, let's just say around 2 seconds, right? So we can do Control-Shift-D on this clip and you see it cuts it, and then we can press delete on the second part, and then we can drag the second clip or the second picture right there, see? And then this, we don't have to cut any of that. So you just see it switch like that. And we see if we zoom in, there's probably a gap here. Yeah, see that? So make sure whenever you cut things like that and like match them up, make sure you're zoomed in, because sometimes you can leave a frame, because if you're zoomed out, it looks like they're together, but they're really not. So what we want here is a spin transition. So what we need here is keyframes of rotation. So we're going to go to transform and rotation, or you can just highlight the picture and press the R key and rotation comes. So whenever you're trying to make any type of transition, or you want to change position like smoothly, kind of like an animation or whatever, you want to use keyframes. And you see if you click on this little stopwatch thingy, it creates a base keyframe of 0 rotation. So then if we move to where it switches to the next picture, and we make another keyframe by hitting this little icon on the left, and then we change the value to whatever we want it to be. So in this case, if you want to spin to the right, let's put it to something a little less than 180 degrees, so like 179 maybe. And now you can see that it spins around, right? Like that, which obviously doesn't look great yet, but we'll obviously fix that. So now let's go to the second clip, go to rotation, and now when we start the first keyframe, you want to start a rotation of maybe 181, since before we were one less than 180 degrees, so let's go one more. And then doesn't really matter, sometime away from that. We want to set it not back to 0, because then it's going to go back the other way, like that, see? So we want to just go straight to 360 degrees, so that we can put that to 0, and then set this value on the left to 1, and that's just one full rotation. And now we see we have this amazing transition, like that, and you see that one's a little and you see it looks horrible, but we're gonna fix that. Actually, what you really want to do before what I just did is go highlight the picture, go on the right to effects and presets, and you might have to go like this and click on it. You want to go to motion tile right here and just double click on it as you have your picture highlighted. And what you want to do is go to output width and height and change that so it extends beyond your screen, and make sure you check mirror edges. And now you have to make sure throughout the whole transition, the whole screen is completely filled up by that. Perfect. Now go on your second one. Also add motion tile, mirror edges, and make sure that is always filled. Just like that. Now, we want to make this smoother, obviously, right? So now we're going to go back to the keyframes, and we want to click on this graph editor right here as we have rotation highlighted. And you see this right here. This is showing the transition, the speed of the rotation. So what we can do is highlight these points and go down here and select, we want to convert them to auto Bezier. You should probably know how to pronounce that. But anyway, click on that right there. And now you see we have these little dots so we can move around like this. So we want to make this to start off slow and then go faster as it transitions. So we want to make kind of this it might be easier to zoom in on it a little more. And we want to look something like this. Okay, and now you see that it already looks better, even though we haven't done the second picture yet. So go to the second picture, you see it's right here. Convert them to auto Bezier. Okay, let me look up how to pronounce that. Okay.
Bezier curve.
Bezier? They have an accent too. I don't care. I'm just gonna call it Bezier for you guys. Anyway, back to this. Convert to auto Bezier. And now we want to kind of do the opposite because if you think about the second picture, as it starts, you want to go fast and then slow down as it comes out of the transition. So you kind of want the opposite sort of effect with this. So it looks like this. And now already, if you see the transition, it looks a lot better. And what tends to look a lot of times when I see edits, it looks like this, which isn't bad, but you notice that it ends really quickly. You see it transition and then it just stops. Like that, it just stops. What I think looks a lot better is to actually extend. It's easier to do like this. Make the transition much longer. And then, see, this kind of messes up this part, but. And then you just want to at the end, very slowly go back to the value you want it to be. So it still transitions pretty quickly, but it never completely stops until here. And it makes it look a lot smoother. You see that? Instead of just stopping very quickly, it makes it. And what sometimes is cool too is to have a little bit of a rebound effect at the end, so it kind of goes too far then comes back. But not in all cases. You don't want that in all cases. And also what we'd want to do is go to our first one and also start it a little bit earlier. There we go. And kind of do the same thing with this. So we want it to start earlier, but then at the very beginning, we only want it to move a tiny, tiny bit. There we go. And you see sometimes it doesn't look very smooth in the editor. And I mean, that just happens sometimes, honestly. And what I'd recommend doing instead of stopping and replaying it, if you want to look at it multiple times, is go to the end here. See this little blue thing? You want to drag that to the end, and then it will act as if that's the very end of the video. And it is the very end of the video. So it will just, if you just take your hand off, it will just keep repeating it. Okay, so now that we've done this part, we can add a couple other effects to it to make it look a lot more smooth looking. And one of these will be is called radial blur. So where is it? CC radial blur. And we want to, oops, it doesn't matter. Okay, highlight both of them and then double click on it so it adds it to both. And we kind of want to make the same sort of keyframes as we did with the rotation with the radial blur. So what we can do is at the very beginning, we want to go to effects here, we have radial blur, and we want to highlight the amount. And at the very beginning, we want it to be 0, obviously. Or we just don't want to start at the beginning. We want to start at the very beginning of the rotation. So as it starts moving, which is right about here, we want the amount to be 0. And then at the right as it switches, we want the amount to be however you think best it looks. Like maybe like that, see? And then once again, we want to change this to otter, did I just say otter? Auto Bezier. That's how you pronounce it. Bezier. B-Z-I-R. Like this again. It's basically the same as the rotation is set to. Doesn't really matter. And you see, it already makes it look a little better. There we go. And then after this, one other thing we can add is zoom. So some of the things I'm adding, you're not always going to want, but I'm just kind of adding everything. So you know how to do all of it if you want to. But you don't have to do all of this if you don't want to. So let's go to the second one. Press E to go to effects, radial blur, amount. And we want to, now in this case, you want to start it as it switches. And the first keyframe is actually be the highest. So whatever, let's go back into here and see what this is set to. It goes up to 17. So let's start this amount at 17 on the first keyframe. And then as it stops, or maybe a little before it stops, as it stops, that's fine. Amount is obviously 0. And again, we're gonna kind of and in this case, we're gonna do the reflection of the other one, so like this. And you can see it looks a lot better with that blur effect. And one thing you can do if you don't want it this blurry, and I forgot to mention, is you literally just set motion blur on like this right here, and that sets motion blur. But it's not really, it's kind of a subtle motion blur. And if you're doing any type of edit, in my opinion, I think you should have everything always set to motion blur, because it makes everything look a lot more smooth. So in this case, for you guys, so you can see this, I'll set disable the radial blur on both of these, and you can see that it actually has some blur here. But if you want to add more, then you have to add a separate radial blur to it if you want more. But you can see it looks pretty good so far. This is probably a very long video because I'm doing this very thoroughly. But one last thing you can add to this is a zoom. So again, we're going to go into transform and scale. So as the rotation starts, which is right here, we want to set a keyframe at 100, and then right before it switches, we want to set a keyframe for whatever you think looks good. So sure, right there, right? Set this to how you want it, whatever. And then if you want to go to the second one, press S to go to scale. Keyframe, but except for the second image, we want the first keyframe to be zoomed in. And then as it kind of stops its movement, we want it to be, and maybe let's put the zoom back to 100 before the rotation stops. So 100. And then Auto Bezier. And we want this to be the, no, my bad, that was wrong. Reflection, so like this. Okay, so now you can see This one might actually go out too fast. And you usually actually want the scale to be pretty far in because you kind of have to make it kind of pretty darn far in for it to be noticeable because it happens very quickly. So I'd actually never mind. The first one was fine. The second one wasn't zoomed in enough. And look at that. Now we have this nice transition. Oh my gosh. I'm tired. Spin / zoom blur transition, which looks very cool. I know this is probably a 15-minute video, but this is basically for beginners, so I still want to explain everything for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, leave me suggestions, please, because I don't usually make YouTube videos. So if I was too slow, which I feel like I was, let me know. And all that stuff. Please give me suggestions. Check out my Instagram. I make edits and memes and stuff like that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye.